Hi everybody, and welcome to my channel Not Only Science. Today we're gonna connect the dots between science and literature. In particular, we're gonna have a look at the mathematics behind the concept of paradise in Christian culture. The paradise we're gonna talk about was first described by Dante Alighieri, the poet that probably more than anybody else contributed to define a complete picture of the universe the way it has been represented by many artists over the last hundreds of years, with the three realms of afterlife: Inferno, Purgatory and Paradise. First of all, who was Dante Alighieri? Dante Alighieri, also known as Dante, was an Italian writer, philosopher, theologist, politician, but above all, poet, who was born in Florence arguably in 1265 and died in Ravenna in 1321, making this year, by the way, the 700th anniversary of his death. He is universally considered to be the greatest poet of the Middle Ages and father of the Italian language. By the way, he's also the guy in the Italian 2 euros. His most famous work, The Divine Comedy, is a poem, where in more than 14,000 lines, Dante describes his journey through the realms of afterlife in order to find redemption, to meet his beloved Beatrix, and then God himself. The description of this entire universe is so accurate that it became a benchmark for many artistic representations ever since. In this video, we're going to talk specifically about the geometry of Dante's universe. So, here are some geographical details of Dante's universe as described in the Divine Comedy. First and foremost, here is the Earth. Since the Divine Comedy was written in the Middle Ages, the Earth is at the center of the universe, and all planets and stars, including the Sun, circle around it. Inferno, Italian for hell, is represented with 9 concentric circles, spiraling all the way down to the center of the Earth. In the very center of hell, that means in the very center of the Earth, is Lucifer, the devil, represented as a three-faced monster frozen mid-breast and eyes. On the other side of this abyss is Mount Purgatory, a mountain where people are sent to redeem themselves before being admitted to heaven. By climbing the mountain Purgatory, we arrive at the Garden of Eden, the terrestrial paradise, once the home of Adam and Eve. The Garden of Eden represents the physical connection between the earth and the third realm of the afterlife, Paradise, located in the sky. Paradise consists of 9 concentric spheres surrounding the earth. Outside of the last sphere, surrounding everything and everybody, is finally the Empyrean, which is the residence of God. And now a question for you. Did you notice something weird about all this representation? I repeat, hell and Lucifer in the center, the earth and Mount Purgatory surrounding hell, Paradise surrounding the earth, and God surrounding the paradise. Still nothing? Well, the really sinister thing about all this representation is that at the very center of everything, that means in the most important point of the universe, is not God, but the earth and, right, Lucifer. Said otherwise, since in the Middle Ages people had a geocentric and not heliocentric view of the universe, it was necessarily also devil-centric. Now, how is it possible that a poem that talks about God, salvation and redemption decides to put the origin of all evil and the ultimate sinner at the center of the universe? In the Middle Ages, this would have been a heresy, and we all know that the church back then used to burn at the stake people for much less. So, how did Dante solve this dilemma? Well, the answer is that actually Lucifer is not in the center of the universe, but God is. And this is because the whole description that we saw so far is in a certain way an optical illusion, and it is Dante himself that describes this optical illusion in his work. In the 27th canto of Paradise, Dante exits the last sphere of heaven and enters the Empyrean. At this point, he looks back and he finds out that this whole time he has been actually moving inwards and not outwards, meaning that God has been the whole time in the center of the universe and the earth and Lucifer all around. This paradox intrigued for many centuries not only church people and artists, but also many scientists. And eventually mathematicians came up with a mathematical description of this phenomenon. Truth is that Dante's universe is not three-dimensional, but is fourth-dimensional. Or even better, it is indeed three-dimensional, but it's bent in a fourth dimension. I know, it sounds very confusing right now, but let's try to understand it together and to make it as easy as possible. We will first need to proceed with the explanation reducing everything by one dimension. That means, let's consider a hypothetical universe consisting of the Earth in the center and the sky all around, with 2 dimensions only, but floating in a 3-dimensional space, more or less like a pizza-shaped universe. From this perspective, Lucifer is the red spot in the center, and God is the blue outside border that surrounds everything. Our location is somewhere on the Earth, not far from the center. Under these geometrical constraints, when we move to reach God, we are necessarily moving outwards, in radial direction from Lucifer. Now, imagine stretching and bending this 2-dimensional world, deforming it like a soap bubble, and keep on deforming it until the blue borders meet in one point. That means we made a sphere out of our pizza-like universe. Under this new perspective, when we move from our location towards God, we are not going outwards anymore. Instead, we are moving towards a new center. Of course, this is true only because we are aware of the existence of a 3rd dimension. For a person living on this sphere, condemned to see the world in 2 dimensions only, the universe will still appear flat, 2-dimensional, since this is the only universe that they know. So, Dante's universe is a universe with 2 centers. This way, it is possible to have God and Lucifer as far as possible from each other and at the same time in the center and at the borders of everything. God is indeed the beginning and the ending, the center and the edge of the universe, and this way there is no heresy committed. What you need to do now is to repeat the same reasoning, but adding 1 dimension to this scenario, which means replace the pizza-shaped universe with an actual sphere, and then imagine bending this sphere in a 4th dimension, so that the border of this sphere converges again in a 2nd center. I know, it might require a lot of imagination to see a 4th dimension, but if you succeed, you will have a feeling of what Dante was thinking while writing the most important work of Italian literature. And this ends our journey in the multidimensional Christian universe. Thanks for watching, and if you're interested in more of these Not Only Science videos, please don't forget to subscribe.